Hey, good morning. Today's Tuesday, September 26th. Yes, almost the end of the month. Coming on October 1st. Halloween's a coming. So I thought today we would talk about what do you do for rest and relaxation? And the other is, what has the business, if you're in business, what has the business provided for you? And if it hasn't provided for you, what should you be doing as far as having it provide for you? And this is for you guys that don't have a business. It's along the same lines. I mean, you're banging in and banging out on a clock, and what do you do during your free time for fun? So let's start off with that. And that is, what has your business provided for you? And when I'm saying that, I'm saying, for me anyways, I knew that I didn't want to have all my eggs in one basket. And I come up through the ranks early on in my 20s. By the time I was 22, I owned my own dairy farm and was milking 70 head. And I had to give up that because the milk prices dropped down below what would be classified as break even. And actually we were going backwards. And at the time I was working 2 jobs. And the one job, the paycheck I got from that went to pay the grain bill. Because the amount of milk we were producing and what we were getting paid for didn't add up, and it didn't pay all the bills. So that was one of the things that, when this business here, with the repair business, started up, I wanted to get back into the animals. Because, don't get me wrong, things happen for a reason, and we turned out all right. I had seen the writing on the wall, that day was coming. And I got a hold of a livestock auction service. And they came in and they auctioned off all the cows and all the equipment. And for us, our debt wasn't really a lot. So what we ended up with is the cattle and machinery loan got paid. And the farm got paid off, and we still had the farm as a profit. That was where our money, equity went. So I wanted to do something along those same lines for years. The farm, what I had done was I had a couple guys that were friends that were raising beef cows, and they were looking for hay grounds, so I just went ahead and let them use my hay ground to get hay for their livestock, just to keep it from growing up, the brush and everything else. But the reason I got into farming was because I loved the animals. I'll be honest with you, a lot of times I get along a lot better with animals than I do with people. Because if you came to visit the farm, even today if you come to visit the farm, all my girls, mamas, have got names. And all of their last year calves have got names and respond to it. And now I'm breaking the new bunch and giving them names. They were like part of the family. They are part of the family. But what I wanted to do was, I didn't want all my assets in one spot, like I did with the farm. We had to sell out. Again, we turned out okay. I know a lot of farmers that lost everything. So as the profits increased every year, at least the expenditures came in, what I would do is, instead of sticking, $500,000 into a savings account, I would put it into buying another cow. And a lot of the cows that I bought were already bred, so I just had to provide them with a place. And we started out with around, well, let me take a step back, because when I first got back into doing this, I went out and I purchased, for the first year, right around 40 Holstein heifers that were not bred, because that's where I had my history. It was the Holsteins and the milking breed. And I had to hold them 2 years from that point. I had to get them up to the 7,800 pounds, get them bred, and then wait the 9-month gestation period to get a calf. And with the Holsteins, I would sell them before they had the calf, because that's how the farmers were paying the most money. They wanted to see, something fresh and on their own, and then they could make $100 on the calf by selling it back to the sale, cut the number down. And I can remember the first year I had them, they didn't do well in the cold weather, but what I ended up doing was I started buying corn silage, because I knew it had a lot of energy in it, and that would give the cows, the heifers, a better chance and keep the weight on, and it did. So about every 3 to 4 days I was getting another 2 ton of corn silage to go along with the dry hay that I had. But as I was getting these heifers bred, the price for Holstein replacement heifers that were ready to freshen plummeted. Yeah, $400 and $500. I'm thinking, boy, am I wrong on this one. So I started converting slowly, and any more animals that I added either red Angus, black Angus, or Hereford. And the Herefords came in black and whites and red and whites. But I started adding those into the herd because I knew I had to transition out of the Holsteins, because wool and the Holsteins didn't do well during the winter months, not having a place inside where they could get warm, and the market had changed. But by the time I got to where I was ready to sell my heifers, bred heifers, the price came back up, and it shot up over $1,500 a heifer. And I was kind of kicking myself at that point. I'm like, Jesus, jumping Jehoshaphat's, that why did I go out and start changing over to beef, and now the Holsteins are in demand? But I had already made up my mind that I was going to start switching over to beef, and it was great because now my heifers were bringing on average $1,500 a piece, and that allowed me to buy 2 beef cows for every one of them that went. And I went up to a certain point, because right now I've got right around 56, 57 mama cows. So I'm doubling my herd every year. But the problem with doubling my herd is I wanted heifers so I could increase the mama cows without buying a bunch more. But I was blessed with a bunch of bull calves. But that's not a bad thing if you're in beef, because most of the farmers that I knew that were in beef, they wanted bull calves. And they wanted bull calves so they could steer them, and they could have a better chance of getting a calf. And they wanted bull calves so they could steer them, and they could have a better chance of getting a calf. And they wanted bull calves so they could steer them, and they could have a better chance of getting a calf. And they wanted bull calves so they could steer them, and they could have a better chance of getting a calf. And they wanted bull calves so they could steer them, and they could have a better chance of getting a calf. And they wanted bull calves so they could steer them, and they could have a better chance of getting a calf. And they wanted bull calves so they could steer them, and they could have a better chance of getting a calf. And they wanted bull calves so they could steer them, and they could have a better chance of getting a calf. And they wanted bull calves so they could steer them, and they could have a better chance of getting a calf. And they wanted bull calves so they could steer them, and they could have a better chance of getting a calf. And they wanted bull calves so they could steer them, and they could have a better chance of getting a calf. And they wanted bull calves so they could ste and they would bring 10 to 15 cents more a pound than a heifer equivalent size. So what I ended up with is the first year was 27 bulls. Yeah. And we ended up, some of them, we're banding them now, and they're over 1,000 pounds, so that they'll become a steer. Because in the beef industry, the beef farmers, there's a number of reasons why people get into raising beef, and that is they know that their family has good, healthy meat. They know that there hasn't been any hormones, any chemicals, anything that shouldn't be there in our herd. And my kids eat it, my grandkids eat our beef. I have customers that buy half a beef every year. They like the beef, but that's the main reason for raising beef. And most guys that are raising beef, they raise steers if they're going to finish them off because they fetch a higher premium. Or if you want to sell them within their first year, they go pretty good. An example is just 2 weeks ago at the sale barn, the yearling steers were bringing over $250 a pound live weight. So if you've got a 800-pound steer or a 700-pound steer, you're looking at $1,400 to $1,600 for that animal, is what they were willing to pay. And that was just the guys that were moving them to feedlots to finish them off the way they wanted to, with pushing as much corn and feed and everything, put the weight on, to end up in your grocery store. So you're probably thinking, where the heck is Eric going with this? It's going with this is you need something that you can get away from your main business and enjoy doing it. And it doesn't hurt if it's creating more assets for you and a more positive cash flow for you. But I asked you guys, what do you do for fun? And this is what I do because I enjoy it. I spent most of my weekend around with my cows. And I walk right out with them. I'm around them every day. I've been around herds that the farmers were standoffish and the cows were wild. Mine are spoiled rotten. But we also know here on the farm, even when my kids were growing up, that they're a beef animal. And eventually that's where they're going to end up. And that's just our way of life, I can remember back when I was running the farm, I used to butcher all of our own beef and put it in our freezer. And to this day, we still, if we're going to put up a couple animals for our families, and I include my employees, they get beef. The folks that we use their hay ground, I give them beef. Because it's just, they tell me come in and cut it for free. But everybody can use hamburg for something, right? So for those animals, we do it ourselves. And my son will come down and Claude will show up and we'll go ahead and we'll dispatch whatever two that we want to take care of. And we'll get them dressed off and we'll get them hanging and get them in right around 35-degree temperature. and let them hang for 12 to 14 days because that helps break the meat down. And then what we do is we all get together for a weekend. And my shop here, this area, is transformed. Everything is moved out of the way. All the equipment is brought in. We have the grinder for hamburger. We've got the plastic bags where we can pack the hamburger in it, and it fills the bag, and we can tie it off, and it's usually 2-pound packages. But we don't need to be exact because we know that it's going to one of us here in the family. And we knock those couple beef out. Or I know a couple of years there we did one at a time over a 2-weekend period. But for my customers, it goes to a custom cutting, and they tell that butcher how they want it butchered, how they want it cut up. But you have to have something that you have passion for and you enjoy doing outside of your business. And you have to have something that you can put your hard-earned money into that also will create an asset, create wealth. Because if I shut the shop down today, I at least have my beef cows to fall back on. And I would just increase the size of the herd. Instead of having 56, 57 mama cows, I would bump it up to 100. And I've got a friend, Jeff, that he's crazy anyways. But he's got 300 mama cows. Yeah. But that's all he does from daybreak to night. Is he's out doing something in relation to having those beef cows. His whole summer is spent just mowing, raking, and baling. He's a one-man band. And he's got beautiful animals. He does a great job. And he's been a good mentor for me, even though he's younger than I am. Because I can go to him and ask him about this or that, and he's a great guy. But you got to have a passion for something other than the business you're in. And it's just something that you can step away if you're having a lot of stress at the business, where you can step away and find enjoyment. Now, for some, that enjoyment isn't going to be an asset. It's going to be a cost, okay? And there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of things in life are a added cost. If you want to go on vacation for a week to Florida, to Disney World, that's an added cost. Everything from your plane fare or your driving, your fuel, tickets to get in, a stay somewhere, that's money going out. But if you get enjoyment from it, then it was worth it. But for me, my mindset isn't like that, and we never had those opportunities when the kids were young because we couldn't leave the cows for a week. But I watched most people that would go on vacation have to come back to work to relax because the vacation was so stressful and exhausting. So you need to have something that is enjoyable outside of the business. For some of you, you're going to tell me that the business is all I need because I enjoy doing the business. And I do too. But I'm not married to my business. You can never marry yourself to a business. I'm telling you right now. Because you have to be able to objectively look at your business and know when the right time when the right things need to be done get done. And that also means if you see writing on the wall that, well, it's time to close up shop or get out, you're not married to the business of where you keep coming up with excuses and you buried yourself. And I see that with a lot of the older shops where they became married to the business. That was their enjoyment. They didn't have anything outside that business. They had spent their whole life building that business. And now they're sitting there scratching their heads, wondering what went wrong, and still unwilling to say uncle, that their way is not going to work anymore. That's why I tell people, do not become married to your business. Now, you have folks like Amos that built a business, got it up to a certain point, and I know he wasn't married to that business because he saw where he needed to make a choice, and that was to sell the business. And I'm going to assume he turned out all right on selling that business. But somebody that's married to it usually dies with it. If they can keep it going, they usually die coming in every day to that business. Never really having anything else that gave them enjoyment. The kids have grown up. They sacrificed outings with them, weekends with them. So don't get married to the business. So what do you guys do outside of your business for fun? And is it something that is asset driven, or is it something that is worth having the money spent to go do it? I'll let you guys comment on that. But for me, it was my cows. I'll be honest with you, I love my cows. They love me. I go out, they want attention, scratching their ears, what have you. And even the worst day at the shop, going up with the cows is a good day. On that note, you guys, have a great Tuesday, and we'll catch you here tomorrow morning.